What's up, Wargamers? We're back with another edition, and we've got some further news today from Games Workshop officially, and this is on Warhammer Community. So if you want to check out their website, feel free to go to warhammer-community.com. And what they've leaked to us today on the 12th of March is the little teaser to the rules for the Armiger Warglaives. So these are the new little chicken-walking baby Imperial Knights. And although these aren't as big as the other ones, they're certainly bigger than a Strider Ballista or any of the other types of Adeptus Mechanicus walkers that are out there. And these also help fill in and bridge the gaps for those Imperial Knight armies that are looking to have a little bit more diversity with their points allotment, instead of deciding, should I field 3 or 4 of the regular Imperial Knights or a Warden and 3 regular ones or errants, whatever the case may be. Maybe split those points costs up and field a few more of these to give you the ability to take on more targets and also to protect the flanks of those larger Imperial Knights. So taking a look again, real up close, we've got them armed with what we've learned is not a multi-melta. It's called a thermal spear. So it's a little bit different rules than the multi-melta. Up on top, it looks like we've got multiple options. Here on this one, we're seeing what appears to be a regular old melta gun. And that also appears like some of them can have the heavy stubber on the top as well for a little bit longer range firepower. And then we've got the chain axe or chain blade here, which will go over those rules. So we've got everything except the actual stat lines and points cost for these guys and any potential special rules that they bring to the tabletop. But we've got a few different rules of which they've been kind enough to leak to us, and it's expected that over the next week we'll see some more information on this interesting unit. There's been a lot of information leading up to this Tau Codex release that's been on pre-order since this weekend, and it's coming up for release next week. There's also just a massive leak on the Necrons, so we might cover some of that here as well on a different episode. So here's the lore and the background of it. If you want to learn a little bit more about what a Knight Armiger is, it says that the forces of the Imperial Knights employ all manner of vehicles in the pursuit for their quest to defend the Imperium. And while the Armiger class might be the lightest, each of these war machines is a deadly force in its own right, and no doubt about that. So Armigers harken back to an ancient martial tradition that have mounted Lord hunting with his loyal bondsmen. While the prey may have gotten deadlier and the hunt fiercer in the 40,000th year, the principle is still the same, with a pair of Armigers guarding the flanks of their larger kin and ranging ahead to slay any potential threats to their lord. So possibly hinting at the fact that they might have a little bit faster movement rate than the Imperial Knights, saying that they can kind of go ahead, ranging ahead of them. So that might be a hint. It might not. It might just kind of mention a tactic that could be used, but I'd like to think of these guys as being a little bit faster. But it says that the pilot of an Armiger is an honor, albeit one much less prestigious than piloting a fully fledged knight. For this reason, Armiger pilots are drawn from the lesser nobility of a knight world, from distant cousins of the ruling house to commoners and lowborn, uplifted by virtue to their exceptional talent for war. So that's the backstory. You could start off as a peasant on one of these knight worlds and end up piloting one of these if you show yourself as extremely high in prowess in combat. So here's the rules. What they're looking to do is use the Armiger Warglaive to allow more players, of course, to buy models, right? Games Workshop. But they've got a way to allow more players to have easier access to super heavy units of which they can add to their forces. So if we're looking for people to do super heavy detachments, things like that, or if you're looking to build out an entire knight army and use these guys as a way to add some flexibility and diversity to your list, that's certainly a way to do it. These are not a heavy support choice. If you haven't learned by now, these are a Lord of War. So a lot of people on the tabletop don't play with this type of unit choice, and it's because it's not included in most of the high command point style detachments that are available to you. So they're small. I think we seem to think that they're about the size of one of the new Redemptor Dreadnoughts, the Primaris Dreadnoughts. That may be the case. They might be roughly that size. Although the Redemptor Dreadnought is classified as a heavy support choice, this one will be classified as a Lord of War. So quite different. So here's some things that we know. So if we're going to build out their stat line, we know that the Armiger Warglaive is fast, that they've got a 14-inch move. So that does make them quite a bit faster than Imperial Knights. And if we were to build out their stat line, we would now know that the movement side on the far left column would be a 14-inch move. So that's great. They've got a toughness of 7, so that makes them as strong as most of the vehicles out there. 12 wounds gives them quite a bit of wounds available, kind of like having a Leman Russ. 3+ armor save is quite average for Imperial type armor, and an ion shield to boot. So that ion shield doesn't have any specific rules mentioned here, but that, in addition to its armor, possibly could be giving it an invulnerable save. I would hope that something this big on the battlefield at least had some sort of invulnerable save, and knowing the Adeptus Mechanicus, it's quite likely that that's actually going to be happen. It'll take some pretty dedicated anti-armor firepower to bring one down. No doubt, you got to cause at least 12 wounds to a toughness 7 model. It's going to bring a lot of saves to the battlefield. Not something you're necessarily easily going to be bringing down with your bolt guns, but it is possible. So let's see here. They're intended, really, I don't know if there's going to be another main weapon. The thermal spear has a little bit of flexibility, not a lot of flexibility, but with a 30-inch range, it's certainly not something that you necessarily have to get right up close into people's faces to use against things like Terminator equivalents and Marine equivalents, because with a strength of 8, you're going to be wounding everything on a 2+, and an AP of 4 is going to strip away a Marine's entire armor save. It's going to leave a Terminator as a burning Hulk and causing D6 damage. What I really see this is, if you followed a lot of my videos, I've got a really nice golden host of the Emperor's Golden Banana Boat. And I've got, 60 or 70 of these Adeptus Custodes. I would be very afraid of an Assault D3 weapon, even though on average it's only going to come at me with about 1.5 shots, give or take. Actually, on average it's going to come at you with 2, because you can't roll less than 1. So on average it's going to come at you with 2 shots, 30-inch range, more than enough strength to wound me on 3s at the worst, and take away all but one of my armor saves from my Adeptus Custodes. And on a D6, you're going to roll 3.5 wounds on average. So that means that you're basically going to be able to kill an entire Adeptus Custodian in one shot. Although, granted, this Knight Armiger this Armiger Warglaive is going to be quite a bit more expensive than one of mine, but there's not a lot in the ranged firepower of an average Adeptus Custodian guard that's going to be able to bring down one of these Armiger Warglaives in ranged combat. So, getting into hand-to-hand combat, as we're about to learn, may not also be the best choice out there for those same Custodian Guard. It would be quite deadly to bring them face-to-face, especially given the small numbers and most of the units that the Adeptus Custodes bring to the tabletop. So within 15 inches, that thermal spear weapon is going to be able to roll 2d6 for the damage that it causes and pick the highest. So closing in on your enemy is going to be brutal, 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 and you, of course, would still have that little melt-a-gun or heavy stubber up on top. So if you pack this with a melt-a-gun, you come running in, you could be popping off 2-3 Marine equivalents per turn, or in some cases, maybe even killing off Knight Paladins from the Grey Knights, killing off any of the high toughness multi-wound models that with high armor saves that most armies have as a prized elite choice or other. So the Reaper Chain Cleaver, it's a Reaper Chain Cleaver. It doesn't look much like a cleaver to me, but because it's quite so tiny, but I guess cleavers are a little bit blunt and heavy as well. It's going to give you double strength. And so here they're hinting that you've got 4 attacks with a strength of 12, so the base strength of the Armiger is going to be 6, doubled up to 12 here. An AP of -3, so that's going to hurt a lot of people, and a fixed damage rate of 3. So this thing is really going to be meant to rip open vehicles like a tin can. It's going to be coming in even at something like a Leman Russ with a toughness of 8. It's coming in with a strength of 12. It's going to peel back those 3+ armor saves to the 4, 5, 6+, and it's going to cause 3 damage per punch with 4 attacks. So we don't quite know what the weapon skill is on this, but you could rest assured it's probably not going to be worse than a 4+. Just given the Adeptus Mechanicus, it's probably going to be a 3+ or a 4+. So this is going to be something that's going to be nasty against those small model count armies, of which it's presumably going to also be in a small model count army in and of itself. So comment below what you guys think of these things. Are these a unit that you're going to pick up? Does this have you excited about picking up the new Forgebane box set that'll be on pre-order here supposedly this coming week or towards the end of the month from Games Workshop? That's still kind of to be determined from as far as I could tell. So that Forgebane box is going to be a sweet box that includes a new plastic Necron Cryptek, 5 of the Immortals or Death Guards, 5 of the, forgetting those guys, the Triarchs, and then a unit of 3 of the Kineptic Wraiths. And then on the Adeptus Mechanicus side, you're going to have a Data Smith, as well as a unit of 10 of the... man, I've got so many of these Adeptus Mechanicus, it escapes me. The Rangers or the Vanguard, and then 2 of the Armiger Warglaive Knights. And I believe that's all that's included in the box, aside from some rules and some other gaming aids. It's estimated that this will be about a $160 game box, $165 possibly if it's anything like the Overkill Death Watch. I believe that one rang in at $165, so we might see it there. Now here's a hint of a new stratagem that's available if you're playing any of the Adeptus Mechanicus armies. So for 1 command point, you would be able to take this Adeptus Mechanicus stratagem. And what this is going to do is you use this stratagem at the start of any battle round before determining which canticle of the Omnissiah will be in effect for your army. And you get to select a Questor Mechanicus unit. So I'm assuming that these guys come in a unit of 1 or more. So they might be fielded in units of 2, which would be awesome. And then in which case this 1 command point stratagem would apply to both of those, or more than 2 if available, in that same unit. But they must be within 12 inches of a friendly Adeptus Mechanicus character, of which there won't be too many of those on the battlefield. That unit will gain the Canticles of the Omnissiah ability until the start of the next battle round. So that's a great way to buff up these little chicken walkers with the same bonuses to weapon skill, ballistic skill, things like that you're going to be able to pass along to your average Vanguard and your Rangers in your Adeptus Mechanicus army. So let us know what your thoughts are below. We'll make some more videos coming up here about the Tau and the Necrons. Those new releases have us excited. I've got Tau already on the shelf that I've been building out for years and haven't played with. Haven't played with this iteration of the army that I've been collecting for the last 3 to 4 years. Just slowly gathering up some models on the cheap. And I did play Tau right when they first came out. I'd say that was probably about the year 2000, 2001. That I picked them up the very first day they came out for release, painted up that box of 12 and the 2 drones, took them back to the store, so excited to show them off, and how much my painting skills have improved over the years since then. But they certainly have always been a fun army to play. Very easy for beginners to get into, much like Space Marines, but with a kind of like a guard Eldar Space Marine combination, and they've always got some funky tech. I think they've definitely got one of the most complicated codexes coming out here, of which there's been many leaks on. So stay tuned for some more information. You've got it right here. This is Budget Wargamer.